Hello and welcome to MalMakes. Today we're painting one of the loading screens from Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. This is the full version. If you're interested in the time-lapse, you can click on the card here. Otherwise, let's get started. Juicy Jungle is the 5th world from Tropical Freeze, and in this one I have 5 different layers plus my background layer that I have to do. And I'm going to be doing that background layer first. However, it does go from yellow to violet. And yellow and violet are complementary colors, and when you mix them just straight up, you tend to get a muddy color in between. Because when you mix complements, you tone down their intensity and they turn kind of brown or like a weird grayish color. These two tend to make it a little green in my opinion. So what I need to do is I need to do a gradient from yellow to a magenta color. And then after that dries, I can bring some of that violet down on top of the pink just to kind of keep it separate from the yellow. The first part of the background, I mixed up a light yellow with primary yellow and titanium white, and then I took some primary magenta and just lightened it up a little bit with some titanium white. And I'm going to do a gradient between those two and then just bring up the magenta as far as I can on top of the canvas. And like I said, later when it's dry, I'll just bring some violet on top of this and blend it down into the magenta. I'm starting with the yellow because I want to make sure that stays nice bright yellow and doesn't turn pink. I'm not worried about the pink because I'm going to cover up so much of it with the violet, but I want to make sure the yellow stays. So I'm starting all the way down here, and I'm just going to bring it all the way across the canvas and kind of feather it down towards the bottom because that'll get covered later by all the other layers, but I don't want to have to go back and repaint some of it yellow. I'm also going to get the sides as I bring the yellow upwards. And just go all the way across, and it's easier if I go all the way across and kind of just let it go off the canvas. If I don't start and stop in the middle, it's a lot easier if I just keep going. So I'm just going to keep bringing this upwards till I'm pretty far up the canvas with it, and I'm just going to feather it towards the top. So there's still some yellow there, but like the brush kind of naturally runs out of paint, and it just feathers into the regular canvas. And I'm trying to work quickly because I don't want this to dry. I want it to be wet here on the canvas still so I can mix the pink in with it. Then I can pick up some of the pink and just lay it down right across the top here. And then once I have a good amount on the canvas, I can work on blending it into the yellow. And sometimes I'll just go back and forth down into the yellow and then back up into the pink. Or sometimes I kind of do a little bit of this wiggle just to kind of push the paint down into it, and then I'll come back up into the pink. And I'm going to do the same thing where I bring this up here and just kind of feather it out. And I'm going to use up all the pink I have, even if it goes all the way to the top where the violet's going to be later. I'm not worried about that. I'm adding the pink down on top of the yellow, and I'm trying to blend them in together here without like pushing all the yellow down where I can't see it anymore. So one of the things I do sometimes is I'll put both colors on the brush and then just set it down so I make sure the right color goes the right way. And then I kind of bring them together here and work on blending them with that. And I'm just going to go back and forth, like I said, making sure I go all the way off the sides of the canvas because it's a lot easier to have a nice smooth gradient if I don't stop in the middle. All of this is dry, so it's time to add the violet next. And I made the violet with magenta and cyan, but then I noticed it was really dark because violet tends to be when I make it, so I added just a little bit of titanium white to lighten it up. Because I have all of the leaves that are going to come down here in carbon black, I need to be able to see them on top of that violet, so I had to lighten it so I could see them and make a contrast between the two. So I'm going to do the dark violet here and kind of fade it more into a violet I mixed with this magenta, and then I'm going to use some clear acrylic glazing liquid to just kind of blend it down into this without it getting muddy with this yellow. Finding the placement of these is probably one of the harder things that you have to do. So I've drawn in a light layer of where I want all of these top leaves to come down. I started to fill in just a little bit of where I want one of the other palm trees to sit for the front black layer. And then I drew in a bunch of trees with more detail for this furthest layer here. And I also drew in all of these front hills to kind of figure out how high up everything is going to start. This front one here is going to be the black layer, and then this one is going to be one of the medium layers, and then this far one on both sides is going to be that furthest layer that works with these palm trees. So I've mixed up a primary magenta with a primary cyan and then just added a little bit of titanium white to it, and that's going to be my layer for out here. So it's actually kind of a pinkish purple color, and it's a bit lighter than you would expect. Just to make sure you can see it on top of all of these other layers. So I'm going to fill in all these palm trees and then these two faraway hills, and then we'll move on to more layers. The next layer is kind of more of a violet color, so there's more cyan in it than the last one. And I'm just going to do the same thing, filling in the chalk outlines I've drawn. And with this one, when I was drawing it, I was trying to draw it a bit taller so they were a bit bigger than the ones before, just because as they get closer to us, they're getting bigger. So I'm going to make the trunks wider, the palm fronds are kind of getting bigger, and they're also getting taller. My tip for doing the trunks of these trees is I'm using a flat paintbrush, and I'm just kind of starting outside of the line of the trunk and then pulling it in to kind of create that little bit of a shelf. And then I'm pulling it down to kind of create the width. And then I'm bringing it down, I don't know, just a ways, and then I'll do that again. I'll pick another spot and pull in from the side to create the shelf, and then I'll pull down to create the width. For the black layer, for the palm fronds, I'm using a brush tip marker with the liquid carbon black in it, and I like it because I can do a lot more fine detail work. I can get these nice tiny lines here on these palm fronds. It doesn't work really good for big spaces, but little details it works really good. And I could get these same tiny lines with a paintbrush, a tiny paintbrush, and the same liquid black, but I have a lot more control with the marker, so I like to have that same liquid black in the marker where I can get these tiny, tiny little pointed lines. I want to point out something else with these trees. On the regular loading screen, you have like this one puff of fronds, and then there's like one a little bit further down, and that doesn't really feel like a normal palm tree you could find anywhere in the tropical part of the world to me, so I decided to just kind of keep it like a regular palm tree you could find anywhere, just to kind of make them a little bit more generic. And I like the look of them better because they feel more like palm trees I would find where I live, so I decided to go with them that way. But I'm going to fill in the trunks with a brush in the liquid black, and the same with the base here, and then then I'm going to start to work on some of the ground cover and some of the vines that come up from the ground. The brambles were a lot of fun to do. I just took the chalk pastel and drew in these spirals, and then I just filled in with the solid black, and then I kind of gave it spikes all the way around and some other viney bits. And then over here I drew in some vines, and those were also pretty easy, except I messed up the second one. I didn't draw it on my chalk line, so that's why you have a lot of this extra chalk that I'll erase once it's dry. But after I kind of messed up the second one, I just had to adjust and draw the rest of them to give them weight. So I would wrap them around these other ones and then droop them down so they kind of sag and sit on the other ones. The last thing I have to do is draw in my character, and because I haven't drawn in Cranky yet for any of these, this is a good time for him. So I'm going to draw him in here using his pogo stick kind of going across the loading screen. I used the same carbon black that I've been using for all of this black for the body, and then I used basically the same thing but with titanium white for the beard. And the beard should be a little gray, and theoretically I could mix these two together and then just use a small paintbrush to fill in the beard. But I find the high flow is just a little bit transparent when it comes to the titanium white compared to the heavy body titanium white. So I've mixed up a light gray with titanium white and carbon black of the heavy body, and I'm just going to go back over the beard with that. When signing my name, I pretty much always go with the bottom right unless there's like something important right here, then I'll maybe switch it to the left. And as for color, it kind of depends on the piece. If there's no black in it, I might just do black to kind of keep it down away from itself. If it's something very dark with white in it, I might use white, but in this case, because there's no white and I can't really use black over here, I decided to go with one of these lighter violet colors, just to kind of make it blend in and kind of stay in harmony with the piece, not draw too much attention to itself, but not hide it too much either. So I'm just going back over the top of this white with one of these lighter purples that I had earlier on one of these palm trees, and then the entire thing is done. And we're done! We have the loading screen of Juicy Jungle from Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. If you're interested in this piece, you could buy a poster or a phone case, or bid on this original canvas. There's links down below. Also, consider supporting me on Patreon. You can find out more at supportmal.com. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of MalMakes, and I'll see you again here for another video game painting.